Dr. M. Kaur, you've written some really good things in the comments. If you could just share some of them, that's just a request. Dr. M. Kaur.
Hi, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Yeah, I'm Manmit Kaur. I'm one of the senior members from British Sikh Doctors Organisation. And so I think actually a lot of the salient points have been made. Just a couple of things that I think may not have been discussed as yet. So just in terms of something I put on the chat was that I'm sure many of the Gurdwara are already doing this, but it's just very important to reinforce to the Sangat that even prior to entering the Gurdwara, it's obviously, it's important that everyone's aware that they mustn't even attend the Gurdwara. Just have to think about the others. Of course, the vast majority of most Gurdwara or Sangat actually consist of elderly, who are one of the most vulnerable groups. And so it's avoiding coming in if you've been unwell in the last 14 days, or indeed if somebody who lives in your property has had symptoms of any sort, be that temperature, cough, and if you're unsure, it's better to stay on the side of caution, to not attend until those symptoms have been absent for 14 days. I think Virji previously, who's from Kent, was talking about gloves and things. I think there's a slight misunderstanding with people with regards to gloves, in that outside of non-clinical areas, there isn't really any need for them if we're doing stringent hand washing. That is enough. If you're using good antibacterials or soaps, that is enough. Masks are obviously much more important, as VG spoke earlier on. In terms of mathatik, I think we've talked about that before. I think it's a very good idea to have a disposable or something indeed that you can wash, because of course environmentally it's not going to be, if anything, people who are then having to remove the usual sort of coverings that are miles from the ground, rather than doing that, plastic or wipeable surfaces are ideal. I think just talking about the wider side of things, so toilets should ideally have a limited number of people entering and leaving. So it's kind of in keeping with the one-way system. And so talking about Parkarma, someone mentioned about doing Parkarma of Guru Sahib. And I think actually the only issue with that potentially is that people do like to matha take all sides of Maharaj. And I think that's something that we need to perhaps be very, very careful about, because we have to obviously protect those around us who will be sitting doing Bart and Kirtan as well. We've talked about the Kirtan already. And somebody else mentioned about Anand Karaj and whether or not we should be having family members sitting near them. I think at the end of the day, according to Rahat, you don't need to have your family members sitting close to you. So when it comes to safety, surely that should be number one. So if we have the bride and groom, they don't need to be touched by anybody. They can stand up, do their own parkarma, and we, at the end of the day, safety is paramount. So I think that they're most of the points that I wanted to add. Vaj Khalsa, Vaj Fateh.